Welcome to LiveDaf, your online Daf Yomi Shir.
Shalom Aleichem and welcome back to today's Daf Hayomi Maseches KEREISOS Daf Yud Zayin. We are holding on Daf Tes Zayin Amud Beis by Amar of Chizda, so it's the second wide line. This loops back to yesterday's discussion. So let's do a brief recap of yesterday's sugya, which will frame today's discussion. So we had discussion between Rabbi Akiva and Rabbi Eliezer in the Mishnah. He posed him a number of questions. Wanted to know whether if a person commits several infractions repeatedly, will he be chayev one carbon per infraction, or it's all covered under the same carbon? Now, what kind of situation are we talking about? We had three ways to explain it. We had Rabbah, Abaye, and Rav Chizda. Let's bring up yesterday's chart just for a refresher. We addressed three different scenarios. One is called Yamim Mechalkin, one was a question of Gufin Mechalkin, and then there was a question of what's the status of a Tolda vis-a-vis the Av. Today we're going to focus on the first two elements of that discussion, Yamim Mechalkin and Gufin Mechalkin. So the question of Yamim Mechalkin pertained to Shigigas Shabbos. A fellow committed malachas repeatedly, week after week, due to the fact that he wasn't realizing that it's Shabbos. And this happened week after week. So the question is, shall we say, since it was done under one ha'alama, one forgetfulness, one lapse of unawareness, he never consciously became aware that it had been Shabbos when he did the malacha. So perhaps there's one continuous experience covered under one chatas. Or shall we say Yamim Mechalkin, the fact that there are weekdays in between the two Shabbos, that automatically creates a split, a gap, a separation between the two Shabbos. And each Shabbos is addressed separately, and each one triggers its own liability, its own chatas. So we're going to focus today on Rabbah and Rav Chizda. According to Rabbah, that was not for discussion. Of course, Yamim Mechalkin. He didn't have to ask Rabbi Eliezer such a question. His question was whether Gufin Mechalkin. Now that pertains to a case exactly the opposite. He knows it's Shabbos, but he's not realizing that this is a malacha, and he does that over and over again, week after week. Shall we say, since it's one unawareness throughout, it's covered under one chatas? Or shall we say, since this time it was this Shabbos, next time he flicked the light was the next Shabbos. Each Shabbos is separate and distinct, because the malacha relates to the day that it was done in. It's its own environment, each Shabbos. It's like different goof and different elements, different entities. It's like he did two types of malachas. Rashi explains, like he was koitzer one week and chayrish the other week. So although it was the same identical malacha, but since it was done throughout different weeks, each week has its own flavor, its own identity, its own label. Gufin, bodies, entities, mechalchen, they affect the separation and the split and division, in which case he has to bring a separate chatas per Shabbos. So one chatas turning on the light this Shabbos, another one for the next week, and so on. According to Rabbi's approach, this was actually the question that Rabbi Akiva asked of Rabbi Eliezer. What happens in the case of Gufin Mechalkin, yes or no? His answer was yes. Rabbi Akiva did not accept that, and he held that really one chatas covers it all. We do not say Gufin Mechalkin. Because fact is, he didn't realize there was something wrong, and that's what caused him to do it week after week. So irrespective of the fact that it's stretched throughout many Shabbos, it's one root cause of forgetfulness for this malacha, one chatas. We'll jump over to Rav Chizda. He says, look, regarding this question of Gufin Mechalkin, when it was Shigigas Malachis, meaning he knew it was Shabbos, but unaware of the significance, the consequence of the value of what he's doing, of course Gufin Mechalkin, of course, each week has to be treated separately. That wasn't up for discussion. Rabbi Akiva knew that on his own. His question was regarding Yamim Mechalkin, which is again exactly the opposite. He knew that this is Malacha, but he didn't realize today was Shabbos, and that happened week after week. Shall we say, the fact that there are days in between, it's as though he became aware that he had missed a Shabbos, and that he had done Malacha on Shabbos. Rashi said it's inevitable that he shouldn't have some sort of subconscious awareness. Look, these are weekdays. Apparently that day was Shabbos. Tosfos learns that it's Xeris HaKasa, the fact that we have such a drastic, separation, delineation between the Shabbat. We have weekdays. That automatically constitutes a separation. Okay, whichever way you learn. So the question is whether Yomim Mechalkin, and that was the question posed by Rabbi Akiva to Rabbi Eliezer, to which he responded yes, and Rabbi Akiva actually accepted it. He was okay with it. So bottom line, regarding Yomim Mechalkin, just refresh the terms because we're just going to use short form terms as we learn the Gemara to keep it concise and simple. Again, Yomim Mechalkin pertains to a fellow who's aware that this is a malacha, but not aware of Shabbos. He doesn't realize Shabbos today, and this happens week after week. Do we say it's one continuous experience, one shgaga, one chatas, or do we say Yomim Mechalkin, days in between, separate? So according to all, Rabba, Abaya, and Rav Chizda, ultimately, Yomim Mechalkin. It's just that according to Rabba, he didn't have to ask it, it was so obvious. The question mainly pertains to the next point, Gufin Mechalkin, which is exactly the opposite. He knows it's Shabbos, he's fully aware that it's Shabbos, but he's not realizing this is a malacha, and he does it repeatedly week after week. According to Rav Chizda, obviously it's a separate entity. The Shabbos is this Shabbos. The malacha next Shabbos is malacha. So each malacha, the malacha done on each Shabbos is considered separate from the next Shabbos. That's Rav Chizda's approach. So again, according to Akiva, Guvin Mechalkin. According to Rabbah, it was a question that he posed to Rabbi Eliezer, who says yes, Guvin Mechalkin, and he didn't really accept it. So the focal point of our discussion will pertain to this case of Gufin Mechalkin, which according to and Rabbi Akiva's opinion according to Rabbah, it's not Mechalkin. According to Rav Chizda, yes, even according to Rabbi Akiva, Gufin Mechalkin. Okay, so now let's see the Gemara. The second white line. Amar Rav Chizda. How do I know that this is so? That what is so? That Rabbi Akiva is in full agreement with Rabbi Eliezer that Gufin Mechalkin. Amar Rav Chizda, Menaminillah. This time you have a brisa. HaKosher shtei oisis belam echas. So he was engaged in the malacha of ksiva, which entails recording 2 letters. So 2 letters is a full malacha. 1 letter is a half a malacha. He did a behelam achas, which again means under one lapse of forgetfulness. Not realizing, right? Chayev. So you combine the letters, it's one act, it's one malacha, and it's chayev bechatas. Bebeis halamos, suppose they were not done continuously, meaning he wrote 1 letter, and then realized, what did I do? I did a malacha. Then he forgot again and proceeded to conclude the next letter. Shall we say they've been divided, separated, you can't combine them into one malacha? Or shall we say, look, the awareness, the knowledge came to him right in the middle. So what did he know? What did he become aware of? The what? That he wrote a letter? What's a letter? A letter on its own is not a malacha. Hence a machlekes. Rabbi Gamliel said, this yediyah, this knowledge, this awareness, has no halachic value, and therefore mechayev. Rabbi Gamliel mechayev, he obligates him for echatas, because we skip over this awareness, we combine the 2 letters into one malacha. Chacham say, look, the fact is, he had a yediyah, he had some level of knowledge, even though it was only a yediyah of chatzi shir, of half the amount, half the malacha. Ultimately, he came to realize what he did. So that affects the separation. They dissect the experience, and you can't connect the 2 letters. Umoide Ram Gamliel, even Ram Gamliel, who in the previous case attaches the letters, he would agree in the following case, if 1 letter was written last Shabbos and 1 this Shabbos, certainly it's too far apart, you can't connect it. Shem Kosav Ois Achas B'Shabbasu, Ois Achas B'Shabbasu, he recorded 1 letter in this Shabbos and 1 letter in the next Shabbos. Ois Achas B'Shabbos Acharis Potter, of course he's Potter, you can't combine and connect those letters. And we're going to explain it in a minute. So according to this brisa, although when it comes to the question of Yediyah Lachatzi Shir, Ram Gamliel discounts the Yediyah. It's as though he never became aware in between and we combined the 2 letters. But when it comes to one letter per Shabbos, too far apart, you can't connect them. V'tanya achriti, we have another contradicting brisa. HaKosher b'shtei Shabbosos, echad b'Shabbos v'echad b'Shabbos. He recorded two letters, one letter last week, one letter this week. Ram Gamliel, you would think he would exempt him, right? No, Mechayev. V'chachamim are the patron. So the question is, a minute ago, Ram Gamliel said, he agreed. He was Maida, you can't connect letters from last week to this week. How do you explain, how do you reconcile this apparent contradiction? The Gemara figures at this point, the Ram Gamliel, Rabbi Akiva spherely. Rabbi Gamliel is in line with Rabbi Akiva, as we're going to see later. If so, if Rabbi Gamliel is aligned with Rabbi Akiva, this will give us a window into Rabbi Akiva / Rabbi Gamliel's position on the matter of chatos for ishgaga, which is the topic of our discussion today. So let's go back and make an attempt at reconciling this apparent contradiction between two brises. One letter last week, one letter this week. Brisa number 1, Rabbi Gamliel says, pater, too far apart. Can't combine weeks. Gufan muchlakin, right? As opposed to the second brisa, where he seems to say otherwise. He says you could combine two letters of two different weeks. Says Rav Chizda. So according to my approach, in the understanding of the machlekes, that in terms of the question of gufan muchlakin, all agree, yes, gufan are machalkin. That I said Zada in Shabbos, Vishigas Malachit. He knew it's Shabbos, not realizing that it's a malach, and does it repeatedly week after week. That's the case of Gufin Machalkin. In that case, all agree. I feel Rabbi Akiva. Oimer de Shabbos is kegufin damyan. Even Rabbi Akiva agrees that each Shabbos is treated separate and distinct from the next. Okay, so that explains the brisa. Hadasanya Potter. So the first brisa, which says Potter when it's letter last week and letter this week, is this very case. Bazal in Shabbos, he knows it's Shabbos. Vishigas Malacha is not really saying it's a Malacha, and does it repeatedly week after week. One letter last week, one letter this week. You can't connect. Different goof and different experiences, different environments. The Shabbos is because the two Shabbos, Kiguf and Dami, two different entities. Like Rashi says, like two half malachis, like he plowed and he harvested. They're not comparable. They're not connected. So that explains brisa number 1. What about brisa number 2? It's not the same exact case. That's talking about a question of yomim machalkin. That's when he knew that it's a malach, not realizing that it's Shabbos today, and the same again next week. So the only way to separate the Shabbos is by employing the concept of yomim machalkin. That was the first point that we spoke about. That the days that are experienced in between is like an awareness. It's like a yediyah. Well, guess what? According to Ram Gamliel, even if it's a yediyah, but in this case, it wouldn't help us. Because, like we said, ein yediyah l'chatzi shir, knowing about a half a malacha is not considered an awareness. So we discount that yediyah, and we could connect it 2 weeks. Hence, we have 2 letters written in unison for a malacha. Beautiful. V'adasani, we turn to the next page. V'adasani chayav. Whereas the second brisa, where we say, according to Ram Gamliel, you could connect last letter with this letter. He's aware that it's a malacha, not realizing that it's Shabbos week after week. And although we have those days in between which constitute an awareness, big deal. Awareness right in the middle of a malacha doesn't count. Because he holds ein yediyah l'chatzi shir. Yediyah in the middle of a malacha, when he's only halfway done, doesn't have any value. So we can discount and we can connect the 2 letters. Beautiful, says Rav Chizda. That's a riot to what I'm saying. That in terms of Guf and Machalkin, of course, we're on Yom Machalkin as well, but it wouldn't really have any relevance in this case. Elul Rav. Now, the Girsa changes all the Ravists pretty much on this page to Rabbah, because he's the opposing view. Elul Rabbah, according to Rabbah's approach, which was that according to Rabbi Akiva, yes, Yom Machalkin, but not Gufin. Then we're stuck. There's no way to explain these brises. Elul Rabbah the Amar. Svirli the Rabbi Kiva the Shabbos is Guf Echad Hein. You don't see Guf and Mechalkin. All the Shabbos is like one entity. Okay, so let's go back to the Brises. Bishlei Mahadasanya Chayev. So the second Brisa, which says that you could combine the two letters, so last week and this week, according to Rabbi Gamliel, Mishkachasla, that can happen as follows. Doesn't really matter how. We're always connected. Bein Bezada in Shabbos, Vishigas Malachis. Whether he wasn't unaware about the Malacha aspect, and he did it throughout a couple of weeks, right? One letter last week, one letter this week. Doesn't matter. The Shabbos is because the 2 weeks Kiguf Echad Dahin. It's like one entity. It's like one experience. That works. So you combine it and he's chayiv. Ubein b'shigas Shabbos v'zad malachos. Likewise, he could be speaking where he's not aware of the Shabbos, and that happens week after week. And despite the fact that we have those weekdays in between, which are called Yomim Machalkim, but again, it doesn't have any relevance in this case because even if there is a yediyah in between, but a yediyah that occurred in the middle of a malacha, a mid-malacha awareness has no value. Because however, Rabbi Gamliel holds any yediyah chatzi shir, a yediyah that took place in the middle of a shir, in the middle of a malacha, has no value. So the second brisa is great. But what about the first brisa? You have no way to reconcile the brisa which says, do not combine letters. And that's why he's potter. How do you explain that? Ella, Hadasanya, potter, but the first brisa which says you can't combine last week's letter with this week's. How are you going to explain it? Not. In the context of this kind of scenario, not. In the context of the other one. Whether the shgaga was on the malach, on the Shabbos, you can't separate the letters. So once you combine it, it's a malacha. A malach, Rabbah. Rabbah responds like this. Your assumption has to be corrected. You were working with the assumption that Rabbi Gamliel is in line with Rabbi Akiva, hence it's triggered the whole. No, Rabbi Gamliel is feeling Rabbi Eliezer. He actually adopted Rabbi Eliezer's view, the opposing view, who says we always separate things. The Amar Shabbos is Kuguf and Damyan. He says, of course, each Shabbos is treated separate and distinct from the next. Okay, and therefore, that explains the first brisa, which says we can't be mitzaref last week's letter with this week's letter. And we're talking that it was shigas malacha. He didn't realize that it's a malacha. He did it week after week, even though it's one shgaga, one halama, but it took place under the auspices of different Shabbos. Each Shabbos is a separate environment, its own world. Govandamyan. That's the first brisa which says pater, and the second brisa which says chayev. You could combine last week's with this week's letter, speaking that the shgaga pertain to the Shabbos. He's not realizing that it's Shabbos week after week. So in that case, the only thing we could work with is the fact that there are days in between which sort of generate an awareness. You have him a machalka, but like we said, even if there is an awareness that occurred mid-malacha has no value. So we're great on the two brises, perfect. Continues the Gemara. But now we have a kasha on this, because if we take a look at that first brise, he says, Ramulil says, we say he agrees, he's moida to his opponent. We presume it's to his opponent. Who is he agreeing? He's agreeing to his opponent that we can't combine last week's letter with this week's letter. Now, when you say umoida, he's conceding. Apparently, there is some point of contention. There's some outstanding point of contention between them, right? Apparently, there's some other scenario where they're in disagreement. We have to go out and explore that and discover what are they arguing about. Says Rav Chisda, if you work with my assumption that Rabbi Gamliel was on Rabbi Akiva's track, and as I said, Gufan Machalkin, and regarding the question of Yami Machalkin, According to Ram Gamliel, in this case, Yamim won't be Mechalek because the Yamim, what do? They generated a Yediyah. A Yediyah mid-Malach has no value. But that would be the point of contention because that's Ram Gamliel's opinion. Ein Yediyah l'chatzi shir, but according to Rabbi Akiva, a Yediyah mid-Malacha would make a division, would make a separation. So we find a point of difference between Ram Gamliel and Rabbi Akiva. So it's all good and well if Ram Gamliel is in fact on Rabbi Akiva's track. Regarding the question of Guf and Mechalken, the answer is yes. Hainu de Pligi. So in what case are they arguing? Are they disagreeing? B'shig Shabbos b'dad melachis, where he's not sure about the Shabbos, not aware about the fact that today is Shabbos, although he knows that's a malacha. And he wrote a letter last week and a letter this week. Can we connect them or not? The Rabban, Gamliel Savar, Ein Yediyah l'chatzi shir. The fact that there's some element of awareness in between has no value because it's a mid-malacha awareness. Whereas, and you'd be chayiv. Whereas the Chachamim, which is Rabbi Akiva, would hold, the Yom in between the Shabbos, Amachalak, a Yediyah mid-Malacha does separate. And that explains that first brisa. He wrote two letters in this manner. Ram Gamliel says chayiv. Why? Because this type of Yediyah, mid-Malacha Yediyah, has no value. The Chachamim Paijim, they say it does have value. So now the letters are separated, you can't combine it. To which the brisa concludes with, Moedu Rabbi Ram Gamliel. But even Ram Gamliel, who disagreed about the first point with Rabbi Akiva, he would totally agree with him. If it's one letter last week and one letter this week, Moedu Ram Gamliel bezadin Shabbos shigas malachis. So if it's one letter last week and one letter this week, but the situation is a bit different, the shkaga pertain to the malacha. He knew it was Shabbos. He didn't realize it was a malacha. He did that week after week. Letter last week, letter this week. Shu Pater, of course, he's Pater even according to Ram Gamliel. Why? Because we all agree. Gufin amechalken. Each Shabbos is its own distinct environment. Can't connect to the next Shabbos. Alma Shabbos is apparently the two Shabbos kigufin damin, treated like two separate entities. Perfect, said Rabbi Chizda. Works perfectly. So again, regarding the question of Gufin, we're all on the same page. Gufin amechalken. He agrees to Rabbi Akiva, Gufin amechalken. What's you arguing about? At the other question. When it's a question of Yom Mechalken, when it's a reverse type of equation where the Shkaga was on the Shabbos, and that happened week after week, should we say the days in between affect the separation? It's a Yediyah mid-Malacha. Rabbi Akiva says yes. Ram Gamliel says no. Perfect. And regarding the second brisa, again, where Ram Gamliel is Machayev, when it's a letter last week, letter this week, again, because we're talking that the Shkaga was on the, pertains to the Shabbos, and days in between could not affect the Yediyah, because it's a mid-Malacha Yediyah. Perfect. Elo Yamas, Ram Gamliel could relate the sphere. But according to you, Rabbi, the only way you were able to explain and reconcile the brises was by saying that Ram Gamliel is going to Rabbi Eliezer, who holds Gufin HaMachalkin. And that's why when it's a Shiggas Malachos, the letter of last week cannot connect to the letter of this week. Each letter relates to its respective Shabbos. So that's in line with Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer severely. But Rabbi Akiva does not hold a Gufin Machalk. Fine. Mechalal de Pligi. But regarding our diuk, there appears to be some difference of opinion between Ram Gamliel and Rabbi Eliezer. As the brisa says, I agree with him on this, but disagree on something else. But what's the point of disagreement? We can't really find anything that they disagree about in this in this type of matter of connecting and combining particles of malachis. Is it regarding the question of Yomim Mechalkin? When the Shkaga was on the Shabbos, week after week, the question is whether the days in between affect the separation, as we had just proposed according to the other way that was the Machlekes between Gamliel and Akiva. But we can't apply it here because Rabbi Eliezer also holds of that. So if it's a question of Gamliel vis-a-vis Rabbi Eliezer, they're both on the same page on this question as well. There's no Machlekes. As we find, we'll show you, we'll find that Rabbi Eliezer is on the same page, that you can't have a mid-malacha awareness. Rabbi Eliezer is exactly on the same page as Ram Gamliel in this matter. You can't have a mid-malacha yediyah. That's the Tanya. We have a brayso about it. He wrote his letters throughout 2 weeks. One letter last week, one letter this week. Rabbi Eliezer Mechayev. He holds him accountable. What do you mean? Different weeks, who cares? Yom Sheben Tayim, and not Mechalik. Because even if it qualifies as a yediyah, it's a mid-malacha yediyah. So, if we clearly see that regarding both matters, regarding the question of Yomim, they both agree Yomim are not Mechalkin. Regarding the question of Gufin, they both agree Gufin are Mechalkin. So why is the Brisa implying that there's some sort of disagreement between the two? We found another, we discovered another instance where there is a Machlekes. Where? Achas al Arik. So there's a halacha that you have to weave a certain shear to be chayiv, and let's say it's already partially woven, the garment, and he added just another string without a full shear, just a one string. Since he's adding it to a pre-existing beged, that gives it chashivas, gives it prominence, considered a malacha. So it's a little bit of a similar type of situation where you're combining, you're adding to a pre-existing, started malacha. So perhaps we can propose that over there's machlekes Gamliel holds that is chayiv, even though what he added is relatively insignificant, but since he's adding it to something of significance that has chashivos, it's a malacha, and Rabbi Eliezer would disagree on that. Well, guess what? We find that Rabbi Eliezer himself also holds him accountable for doing just this. It's not Rabbi Eliezer. To start a weave has to be three lines, 3 rows. If he adds one chut to an existing weave, he's chayiv. So clearly they're both on the same page. There's no point of contention on that case. Rava Amar Michlal de Polag B'chata. I'll give you a different case, where in fact there's a machlekes regarding combining things. The Sanya, Hoitzi Chatzi Grei Geres. A fellow carried out, into the street, some food. Now the minimum shear of Hoitzah on food is a geres, the size of a dried fig, and he did half the amount at a time. Came back in and carried out another half. The Chaz of Hoitzi Chatzi Grei Geres, Behelam Echas, was done under the same halem, same forgetfulness, is chayiv. His chayiv achatas because we deem it as one experience. B'shtei halam is pat, but it was done under 2 separate unawarenesses, meaning he reminded himself in between. They're disconnected, they're separate, he's pat. And it doesn't really matter if the carried on the street, if it was 2 separate streets separated by houses. The fact is, he carried a half geras to the street, came back and did another half geras, even if it's a different street. He combined into one malach. Reisa Eimer, it depends if this Rosh Hashanah is the same Rosh Hashanah, Behelam Echad, with one Helam, but there's another precondition Rosh Echad to the same street, Shem Rosh Echad is chayiv. Shtei Rosh is pata, but if it's 2 different streets separated by Rosh Hashanah, then you can't compare it, you can't combine it. So we find the machlekes regarding combining, uniting parts of malachos. Perhaps this was the point of machlekes between Rabbi Gamliel and Rabbi Eliezer. The Rabbi Gamliel got Tanakama. Rabbi Gamliel followed the Tanakama. We always combine it, despite them being different streets. Rabbi Eliezer Rabbi Yosi, that it has to be the same street. Okay, good, great. So at this point again we have machlekes Rav Chizda and Rabba. Whether Gufin are Machalkin or according to Rabbi Akiva, meaning according to Rabbi Eliezer we know Gufin are Machalkin. What about Rabbi Akiva? Gufin Machalkin, again, Gufin Machalkin means where you have Shigas Malacha. He's not aware about the malacha, although he knows it's Shabbos. He does it week after week. Shall we say one chatas covers it all? Or shall we say the malacha on this week is different than the malacha next week? Guf and Mechalkan, the Shabbos is separate and split them. According to Rav Chizda, the answer is a resounding yes, even according to Rav Kiva. According to Rabbah, no, Rav Kiva would hold Guf and not Mechalkan. Although according to Rav Lezer, they are. Rav Chizda supported his view from that dual brisa, the two brisa that seem to contradict each other regarding the kaisev. We wrote one letter last week, one letter this week. In one brisa, Rav says pater, they're disconnected. The other one it says chayiv, they are connected. Says Rav Chizda, Rav is going like Rav Kiva. In the first brisa, gufan hamachalkin, therefore they're disconnected. In the second brisa, we're talking about yamim machalkin, because there was the shkag on the Shabbos. At most you could have is that the days in between the Shabbos separate them. Well, the days affect an awareness. Yediyah, mid-malacha yediyah is not reckoned with. And Rabbah had to explain it differently. That Rav Gamliel is going like Rav Eliezer. And that explains why in the first brayso says pater, because gufan ar machalkin, according to Rav Eliezer. And in the second brayso, you connect the letters because they were talking where the shkaga was in the Shabbos. You didn't realize it was Shabbos week after week. You want the days to make like a yediyah? It's a yediyah chatzi shir. It doesn't work. And we explained why the Brisa used the word moide, that he agrees to Rav Eliezer because in a different instance there is a machlekes in something similar. Tashma. Here comes another raya to Rav Chizda's approach. That in fact all agree that gufan machalkin, and the question was posed to Rav Eliezer back in the Mishnah regarding yamim machalkin. So all agree if the shkaga relates to the malacha. He knows the Shabbos, but is unaware about the malacha and does it week after week. All agree it's separate. The question was regarding yamim machalkin. The shkaga was on the Shabbos, it's week after week. Shall we say the days in between affect the separation? Whereas according to Rabbah, all agree yamim machalkin. That was not for discussion. The question was regarding gufan machalkin, and Rav Eliezer says they are, and Rav Kiva did not accept it. Okay, so again, that was the different approaches to the Mishnah. Let's go back to take a look at the Mishnah itself and see how it fits. Tashma, Omar loy. So in response to Kiva's question, whatever it was, Rav Eliezer says, yes, separate liabilities, chayiv al kol achas v'achad, mekav v'chayim, based on kal v'chayim. Ma nida shem b'teteres hybrid. Getting involved with a nida, which is relatively limited, a limited scope. There aren't so many, applications, so many variations of Isser. It's one thing interacting with the woman. Still, one gets separate liabilities for repeated violations. Certainly by Shabbos, which has many applications, many malachis, we separate the liabilities. Now, from this comparison to Anida, we can derive what the question was regarding Shabbos. What was the nature of his query? So certainly according to Rav Chizda's approach, the question was shkaga on the Shabbos that happened week after week. Shall we say the weekdays separate, the Yom Shem and time, days in between, are the days considered the Yediyah and they separate or not? That was his question. So it works well with his response. That explains why he responded to him from the halach of the nida, which is also separated by days. We'll see later. She went to the mikvah. There are days of tahara in between. So it's a similar equation, and from there we separate the liabilities here as well. Hello, Rabba Domer Zoda in Shabbos v'shigas malchus de b'minei. But according to Rabba's approach, that he knew Yom HaMachalkin, that was not for discussion. This question was the gufan HaMachalkin. So in a case where he knew it was Shabbos, but shkaga was in the malacha and did it week after week, shall we say different Shabbos is different liabilities. Shabbos is whether or not the Shabbos is iki gufan damian v'loy, whether Shabbos are considered like separate entities or not. Listening to nidais. So to that, Rav Eliezer should have responded from several nidais. Fellows involved with 5 of his wives who are nidais, separate liabilities, which is a comparable equation to the case of 5 Shabbos. Why did he speak about one nida? How does that shed light on the question of Gufin of Shabbos? Amalach Rabba Tani Nidais. Let's revise the Mishnah. Tani Nidais. He responded with the many. And he brought it right from several Nidais. Despite being the same Isser, but since it's separate body, separate people, it's separate Chiyuvim here as well. Each Shabbos, its own separate liability. Shmuel, however, he went like Rav Chizda, Tani Nida. He brought it right from a single Nida. Rav Ada bar Abba Tani Nida as well. Rav Nasan bar Isha Amrar Tani Nidais. He went like Rabba's approach. That there were several Nidais, which correspond to the several Shabbosos. Now, just one more point to Rav Chizda. He was the one to ask this question on Rabbah. He brought a raya to his own position from the Mishnah. Rav Chizda, Amar Shiga, Shabbos, according to him, the question was regarding the Shkaga that pertained to the Shabbos. Week after week, shall we say, the Yamim should be time and days in between, the Minhabi Yidil Lechalak, V'Eloi, but the days are considered like awareness, meaning doesn't make a separation between Shabbos. And he responded with a raya from Nida, Ma Yamim should be time Avidin Lechalak, Ispa. What do you have days there to be Mechalak between the violations? Amar, Rav, Kon Shabola, B'Tavla. But that was he was involved with her once she was a Nida. Then she was Tayvel. So she had Yimei Toyar, a different world, different experience. It's like weekdays versus Shabbos. Yimei Tahara between Yimei Tumah. And then she saw Dam again. She became a Niddik. And get involved with her again. But Tavla, she would Tavla over and over. The Tvilois, so the Tvilois, and the Yimei Tahara. Then interperse between the Yimei Tumah having Kiyam Shem time. It's like the weekdays between Shabbos. So it's a fair equation. Tashma is another. Right from the Mishnah, this time to Rabba's approach. That the question was regarding Yomim, not regarding Gufim. Tashma habalak tanis yechiach. The next phase of the Mishnah, but let's bring right from Katanis. Got involved with underage nidais. Yechiach, that will prove that each one is a separate violation, likewise by Shabbos. So Bishleim the Rabba, Hanitanis Tanis, going to Rabba. It's a question of Gufin, whether Shabbos are separate. Perfect right from Ktanois, plural. You got involved with many Ktanis that are Nida. We say each one is separate, each group is separate. Perfect. Comparison. El Rav Chizda, my Ktanis, according to Rav Chizda, why discuss the many? They weren't discussing the question of Gufin. Ktanis Da'alma was just one Ktana. It's an expression. She's underage, of the underage girl. So basically, yes, it was a right from one person with repeated violations. And like we said before, the way you may tire in between, which compares to the Yamim, the weekdays between the Shabbos. Hence the comparison. Okay, so in a nutshell, we have two ways to understand the Mishnah. What was Rabbi Akiva's question? According to Rabbah, Yomim Mechalkin was clear cut. The question was regarding Gufin Mechalkin, to which Rabbi Lezer responded, yes, separate liabilities, and Rabbi Akiva did not accept it. According to Rabbi Chizda, Gufin Mechalkin was a done deal to begin with. We all knew that. The question was regarding Yomim Mechalkin. The Gemara writes, Ma'asisn Leikadin Tana. Interestingly, the version that we have in our Mishnah is different than the following version, the following brisa, which had a totally different version of the discussion. In our Mishnah, he posed them regarding malachis and responded from Nida. In the following brisa, the question was actually about Nida itself. The Sanya of Rav Shimon Elazar, Loikach Sha'ali, Rabbi Akiva Rabbi Eliezer, they responded, okay, we won't bring a raya from Shabbos. We'll bring a different source that is chayiv multiple times for multiple violations with one isha. Gets involved with many underage women when they're in Nida. That will prove our point. So, again, there are no many applications by Nida. It's one solitary form of Isser. Interacting with it, right? And he's chayiv one chatas per ktana, per woman. Likewise, in the case of the fellow got involved with his own wife multiple times, as a nida, b'chayiv one per time. So he says, Amr Loi. So the response was, Amr Loi. How could you compare? We're talking about separate people there, separate tanis. I'm talking about the same person. Okay, Amr Loi, they responded, Habala b'hem yechiach. We bring a raya from a fellow gets involved with a behemah. The same behemah repeatedly. So there, the equation fits very well. It matches with your case of one single nida repeatedly. Shein guf and mechlaken, there are no separate entities. It's one behema, v'chayiv al kol zvachas, and each one is chayiv separately. Tesis brings that. He knew that from his Rebbe. It was a known fact. Chayiv al kol zvachas. Likewise, repeated involvement with a nisha nida should generate separate liabilities. And the response was, Amruloi, they responded to him. Actually, some changed all the Amrus to Amar, because it was a one-on-one conversation between Rabbi Kiva and Eliezer. So he says to him, Amruloi, guess what? You're trying to establish the halacha of a nida based on what happens by behema. I'm not sure about behema as well. Amruloi, behema kanida, the same suffix I have regarding nida, I have regarding behema. So he didn't accept Eliezer's response. Hadran Allah Amruloi. Begin a new parak. So if until now we spoke about the chiyuv of a chatas for transgressing one of those severe averas on the kares list, so if it's done b'mezid, there's kares, b'shegi, there's a karma chatas to atone for it, but there's a middle option as well, an asham tali, which addresses a suffix isser. He's not sure whether he actually committed the isser. He brings a special karma asham tali, which Rashi later explains is meant to protect them from any possible retribution. So it's a temporary hold on the system until he confirms that if he in fact did the Yisr, he'll bring a chatas. Up until that point, Yasham Tali addresses the situation. So what's an example of a Chiyav Yasham Tali? Classic is Chelev. So Chelev typically refers to forbidden fats, as opposed to Shuman, which is permissible fats. They look very similar, they're easily interchangeable. So this fellow ate something, perhaps it was chelev, perhaps it was shuman. He's not sure. Safek achal chelev, safek lo achal. Did he eat the chelev, did he not? Next possibility is afilu achal, even though he knows he ate, meaning he thought it was shuman, he ate it, and it turns out it was really chelev. So what's the element of uncertainty? The amount. He's not sure how much he ate. Safek yesh b'kashir, perhaps it contained the full portion, the kazayis, which would make him accountable for a chatos. The suffix, returned to Hamad Einboy doesn't have the shear. It's another example of a suffix. Another example, shuman v'chelev l'fanav. He had a shuman which is permissible material and chelev before him. V'achal echad mem ate one, not sure which one. Now we shift to Arayas. He had the wife was permissible and the sister was not permissible. Both in the home. Shoga bachas man, he was involved with one of them, not realizing. Veni de bezman shoga. After the fact, he's maybe it was the wrong one. Now we shift to malachas on Shabbos. Shabbos v'yam choil. There is the Shabbos day and the weekday. He turned on the light, not sure was it Shabbos, was it Sunday? But also malacha bechad man. He did malacha on one of those days. Veni de is not sure bezman also which one was it. Now Rashi, by the way, points out that the Asham Tali is only going to address an innocent fellow, meaning a fellow who didn't realize to begin with that there was a suffix. But let's say he took his chances knowing that there is some sort of uncertainty, he's not eligible for a Asham Tali. It's like a mazid. So typically a mazid is a purposeful violator. Here, he did a mazid as a suffix. I should say he did a suffix as a mazid. He's also ineligible for a carbon. But if it was just an innocent mistake, which turned out to be a possibility of an Isser, in these cases, maybe Asham Tali. Continues the Mishnah. What if he had multiple experiences? We treat it the same like the Chatas. Just like when a person eats certain definite chela once and again in the same helam, meaning the same forgetfulness, he's chayiv Chatas, but how many? One per, or group rate for all? It's only one covering everything because it was one experience. Likewise, on the flip side, if it's a suffix situation, it runs the same system. So although you consume many portions of possible Isser, it's one Asham Tali for all. Because he never had a reminder in between, so it's one continuous experience covered by one. However, if there was some element of awareness in between, you remind, I ate chelev, I ate suffix chelev. Just like by chatas. It bookends the experience, and he starts anew. Kach maybe Asham Tali, like a Asham Tali situation where it's a suffix. Very, very similar. The idea, I may have sinned. So there it's a vadai. Oops, I did. Here it's, maybe. It bookends the episode, and the next suffix gets its own Hashem Tali. Kach, maybe Hashem Tali, kachas v'achas. Another parallel between the chatas and the Hashem Tali, Kashem she'achal chela v'dama pickle v'nois. Just like when he eats many different types of these surim, be'lamachas, even those under the same forgetfulness. Chayiv v'kachas v'achas is chayiv one chatas per. Kach al lo yadishlan. Likewise, when there's an uncertainty pertaining to all these variations, maybe Hashem Tali, one per variation. Al kalachas v'achas. Itzmar. We have a big machlokes. What would trigger the Hashem Tali? We know it's a suffix, uncertainty. But does he need a choice between two pieces in front of him? And he ate one, not sure which one, or even a single piece does it. One piece whose identity is unknown, and he ate it, and he was not sure what happened. Is that sufficient for Hashem Tali? Itma, big machlokes. Rav Asi Yomer Chaticha Hashaninu. When the Mishnah speaks about a suffix, it's in the same piece. It's one solitary piece. Suffix shal chelav, suffix shal shuman. That triggers Hashem Tali. So there was a piece before him. He's innocently assuming that it's heter, he eats it. Then, after the fact, oops, it may have been chelav. That's enough to trigger a Hashem Tali. Chia, the son of Rav, says no. Chia Rav Omar. You need to have a set of pieces. One Isser, one heter. Meaning after the fact he discovered, those pieces, one was Isser, one was heter, but I'm not really sure which one I ate. You have to have Isser established before you start, within this equation. We're speaking that he ate one out of the two pieces before him, which was discovered later to have been one Isser, one heter. That suffix deserves an Hashem Tali. What's the machlokes based on? Rav Asi Omar Savar. Look at the pasuk. Pasuk says, by the Hashem Tali, he did one of the mitzvahs, achas mekol mitzvahs Hashem ashel teisena. He transgressed one of the commandments. He should have held back. He ate it. He's not sure what happened. He brings Hashem Tali. Rav Asi Savar Yeshemu Mesiris. We focus on the Mesiris. The primary mode of derivation is the Mesiris. The spelling, the way it was handed down in the written form. And it's read it's spelled like mitzvahs, ksiv, which is singular. One single piece, which has a suffix, is enough to trigger Hashem Tali. Focus on the mikra, the way it's read. Plural, mitzvahs, read it plural. There were two items there. Both he should have kept away from because it was a suffix, which one's the aser. And he got involved with one, not sure which. He's chayv Hashem Tali. So there had to have been a choice between the Isser and Heter that would be for him. He proceeded, took one, not sure which one. In that case, he's chayv Hashem Tali. Eisiv Rav Huna l'Rav Asi. Ramilo was chiyuv Rav asking l'Rav Asi. Look at the Mishnah, which seems to speak about two pieces as a starting point of the equation. Chelav v'shuman lefonav. He had the chelav and the shuman before him. V'achal achas men. My love, let's assume the sefer shtei is the fact that the third case in the Mishnah relates to two pieces. Likewise, the first opening line of the Mishnah, Safek achal chelav, also relates to a fellow who had two pieces, and that triggered the Safek. Apparently, you need two pieces to start. Amalu Rav. So Rav responded to them, don't prove anything from a Mishnah that can be learned both ways. I mean, he could easily respond to you. No, you were making assumptions. Who says two pieces? Yeah. The next part of the Mishnah is talking about two pieces per ratio. The initial part of the Mishnah, the opening scenario, is one piece whose identity was unknown. And that triggers Hashem Tali as well. If that's the case, once we establish that one piece is enough to trigger, why does the Mishnah even have to get involved with a double piece situation? Which is more obvious because you have Isser right there. I mean, sometimes the Mishnah goes with sort of I'll tell you the more obvious and the less obvious. And obviously, this as well is just an expression. Now, according to Chiya Rav's approach, that proof, just like the Sefer is talking about a double piece situation. Likewise, the first part of the Mishnah is speaking about a double element equation. So why the repetition in the Mishnah if they're both the same case? Mishnah, Tati, Lamni. Why does Mishnah have to express two examples of the same case? Actually, the Mishnah is explaining itself. You shouldn't think otherwise. We start with Safek Achal Chilav, Safek Le'achal. It's not sure whether he ate or not. In what type of context? He's maybe Hashem Tali. Ketzad, how? On condition that there were two pieces to start. Ketzad Kon Shahaya, Chilav Hashem Lafanav. Only then does he bring Hashem Tali. Likewise, Amar Vidam Rav. You need two pieces to start. He had before him two pieces. One mutter, one asur. Achaz shel shuman, which is mutter. Achaz shel chel, which is asur. And he ate one. Ochel achaz man, again, unbeknownst to him, right? Only after the fact that he discovered this. Ochel achaz man, he ate one. Vele days man, ochel, not sure which one he ate after the fact. Chayiv, he has to bring Hashem Tali because there were two pieces to start. But chaticha achaz, it's merely one piece. Whose identity, whose status is unknown. Safek shel chilav, Safek shel shuman, he ate it. V'achal is potter. Amar Rav, my time at the Rav. What's Rav's source? The pasuk that we mentioned. Amar Rav, v'asa achas mikol mitzvahs Hashem b'ishgaga. He did a shgaga in one of the mitzvahs. Mitzvahs is plural. Shishgag b'shtayim. Provided that his shgaga, his mistake, pertained to two units before him. One was certainly Isser, one was certainly Heter. Mitzvahs, even though it's spelled mitzvahs, which is singular, mitzvah is Korean, read it, mitzvah is plural. Eis v'abaye. So you say you need two pieces. You need a dual element equation. In order to trigger the Hashem Tali system, I'll bring you a raya. Rabbi Eliezer Omer, even when it's just one single element of uncertainty, there's a chiv Hashem Tali. Koi, that's the animal whose status is not confirmed. It could be behema, it could be chayav. If it's a behema, the chaylev is asr. If it's a chayav, the chaylev is mutter, and he ate the chaylev. Chayav and alav Hashem Tali. You eat this piece of unknown material, it means Hashem Tali. It's one single piece that we're talking about, just a single element equation. You don't need to. Amar Lois, he says, Rabbi Eliezer. Yeah, of course, Sabar Yeshem Mesiris. He focuses on the spelling, mitzvahs ksiv. But we're going like the other Tanaim, who focus on the pronunciation, which is plural. Esvei comes another kasha with the same teretz. We find a suffix even by a singular entity. Suffix mentisha l'rishon mishav la'achron. So she remarried after her husband passed away without kids. She was miyavim to the brother, who only could marry if there are no kids. 7 months later, she married too close, and 7 months later there was a baby. We're not sure. Is it a 7-month baby to Shimon, the new husband, or really does he relate to the old husband? He's a 9-month baby of the first, in which case she wasn't eligible for yibum, and this marriage was in sin. Yoitz v'vlad kosher. He must separate, but the child is okay either way. Either he's Reuven's child, he's fine, and otherwise she needed yibum, so he's fine being Shimon's child. But v'chayav and Hashem Tali, you have to bring Hashem Tali just in case there was a sin. And again, we're talking about a single entity. There are no permissible and prohibited entities in front of you. It's one suffix on this Isha. Once again, Amani Rabbi Eliezer, going to Rabbi Eliezer, who requires only one entity. Esvei comes another kasha. Nimtza shaloi. So after they interacted, they found the blood on his cloth. Tmein, the man and the woman are tamei, because this confirms that she had nida status when they were together. Otherwise, what's the blood doing on his side? Chayav mekarban, that bring a karban, because certainly they violated the issue of nida. It's a chatas al shalah, but if they found it on her side, oisim, if it's immediately after they interacted, tmein, chayav mekarban confirms that she was tamei at the time of interaction. Have to bring karban chatas. But nimtzal shalach hazman, let's say they found the trace of dam on her cloth after a while. So now she could have had the status of nida during, or it could have happened later. It's mainly a suffix. They're both tummy on account of that uncertainty. Upturim nakarm, they don't have to bring a chatos for interacting in a nida state. We're not sure, but they have to bring Hashem Tali. We learned on a brisa on that Mishnah. Chayav mishum Hashem Tali. So you see, Hashem Tali is triggered even by a single element of uncertainty. Once again, Amani Rabbi Eliezer is speaking, who suffices as one entity. Amar Rav Chia bar Amar Rav. Once again, we quote Rav to say that we need two entities to trigger the Hashem Tali. And he's going to provide a different reason. So we have two pieces. And he ate one. Not sure which one. Chayiv. Because one out of two. But if it's just one chaticha, one piece, which is a suffix shal shuman or suffix shal chaylev, v'achon he ate it pot on Rav Zera. My time of the Rav. It's Rav's reason. So we had one reason before, mitzvahs. Here comes another reason. Because Savari holds, you see, Rashi explains the point of the Asham Toli is to make a temporary hold until we figure out what happened. So he learns that actually there needs to be that ability to confirm, to determine what actually happened. Now think of it, if there's just one piece and he ate it, it's over. Nothing to determine anymore. You can never verify it. And that's why we need two pieces. And he ate one. In which case Rashi says, if a world expert will show up, he can theoretically do a lab test on the remaining piece, figure it out, and based on that we'll know what he ate retroactively. So basically Asham Tali only addresses a situation which is ultimately verifiable. And therefore he says you need two pieces. So you can verify the Isra. Chatichas, there's just one piece consumed, done, it's over. You can't determine what happened. So this is the reason, in addition to the previous reason, that we need plural mitzvahs. Any difference between the two reasons? It would seem like in both you need two pieces. Ma'ika bein taima. Any difference between the reason, the Rava of Rava, which was based on mitzvahs, which teaches us that we need two pieces. One being chaylev, one being shuman, and you're meant to keep away from both on account of the uncertainty. Mitzvahs, you're commanded to keep away from both. Versus this reason of verification requirement, being time of the Rava, the time of the Rebbe Zera, the difference will be if it's 1.5 pieces. Kazayis and mechza. You don't have two full portions. You have one full portion of kazayis, another half. So li Rava, like a mitzvahs. According to Rava, it's not going to qualify. You don't have two full portions which you're meant to keep away from, because the half portion, not Torah, it's not the full-fledged Isra experience. And therefore it doesn't qualify as mitzvahs. And therefore you're upater. Because mitzvah speaks about two full pieces which you're meant to keep away from on account of one of them being asr, on account of the uncertainty. You don't have that here. Because the one that's half a kazayis doesn't have that level of Isra. Zera fully qualifies, because whatever it is that's left behind after this fellow is done can be used to verify the identity of the other piece. Eisfei Rabbi Yermi asked a kashla b'zera. Again, you're going with the assumption you need two pieces. He's going to ask the same kash as before and give the same tirutzim. He's to start off with a choice of Isra v'heter. Rabbi Lazoim koi, right, the chaylev of the uncertain animal. Chayav al chalbay, Asham Tali. If one eats the chaylev of a koi, gets Asham Tali. There's no choice of the matter. It's just one single piece whose status is unknown. Amalei Rav Lezer, Savar, Labin Larisur. Rav Lezer doesn't need this, determination capabilities. So one piece of uncertainty is fully qualifying for Asham Tali. Esrei comes the next kasha from the Yibum situation. Savar went to Shalushim, Shivul Achrein. Yotelat kasha from Asham Tali. The question is why? There are no two elements to speak of. It's one woman, one. Hamani Rav Lezer. Once again, Rav Lezer holds it's not required. Esrei comes another kasha with the dam of the nida, nimtzal shalah, esyim tmeim, oisim tmeim chayim carbon, misal shalach hazman. They find it after a while. The tmeim is safek, tuim not carbon. There's no chatas, but there's Asham Tali. Why? The question is why? Hamani Rav Lezer. Once again, Rav Lezer is the one who says we don't need the double element equation. We look at the spelling, mitzvahs, and we don't have the din of avari suroi. So any sort of uncertainty, even if it relates to a single item, qualifies for Asham Tali. Okay, so bottom line, we have kares by mezid, chatas by shoigig, we have Asham Tali by the safek, according to Rav Asi, and others. One element of safek is enough, so one piece of a safek triggers Asham Tali. According to the other shita, that's Rav, we need start off with a choice of two, one being asur, one being mutter, which we found out later to be the story. And now there's a safek which one he ate. In that case, it's Asham Tali. It's based on the pasuk of mitzvahs. We have another reason. It needs to be efshel avari surah, which only happens when you have two pieces and there's one left. that could be sent to the lab. Okay, all the best to you and much hatzlacha.